The terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport buzzed with its typical pre-flight chaos. Loudspeaker announcements, passengers rushing to their gates, and flight crews moving with quiet efficiency. At Gate 12, Marcus and Danielle Whitaker stood with their two children, Caleb and Mia, watching the pre-boarding process. They weren't in a hurry. First-class boarding hadn't started yet. Years of traveling had taught them the art of patience. Marcus, dressed in a charcoal hoodie and black joggers, scrolled through his phone while Danielle adjusted Mia's tiny pink backpack. At 7 years old, Mia's curiosity about airplanes was endless. Caleb, 9, was more engrossed in his Nintendo Switch, oblivious to the terminal's hustle. This vacation was meant to be a break, a week on the serene beaches of Maui, far from work calls and tech meetings. As the flight crew finalized boarding preparations, Flight attendant Amanda Lawson approached the gate counter. With nearly a decade of experience, she moved with the confidence that came from knowing her job inside out. She straightened her blazer, smoothed its crisp fabric, and glanced toward the forming first-class line. Her gaze landed on the Whitaker family. Her face barely shifted, but there was a flicker of something, mild surprise, maybe even skepticism. Marcus noticed the stare. It wasn't an outright glare, but something about it felt off. He exchanged a glance with Danielle, who had caught it too, but neither of them dwelled on it. The gate agent soon announced priority boarding. Marcus pulled out their first-class tickets, gripping Mia's hand as they moved forward. Amanda, now stationed by the jet bridge in trance, intercepted them. "Excuse me, sir," she said, stepping in front of them. "This line is for first-class boarding only." Marcus blinked. "I know," he replied, holding up their tickets. "We're in 3A and 3B. Amanda hesitated for a beat before her professional smile reappeared. "Of course," she said, stepping aside, though her tone held a tightness that hinted at lingering doubt. Danielle caught the subtle change in Amanda's expression, a fleeting question, an unspoken skepticism, but she ignored it. They just wanted to board, settle in, and enjoy the flight. The first-class cabin on Pacific Horizon Flight 882 was sleek and spacious, the kind of luxury that made long-haul travel almost enjoyable. Plush reclining seats, personalized service, a curated menu. It was everything Marcus and Danielle had worked hard for. Mia climbed into her seat, her small fingers tracing the buttons on the armrest. "Mommy, look, my chair moves." "Cool," Caleb mumbled, barely looking up from his game. Danielle chuckled, helping Mia adjust her seat. Moments like these, the kid's excitement over the small stuff, were what she loved most. Marcus, on the other hand, had already moved past the earlier tension. He'd encountered situations like that before, people assuming, second-guessing, questioning whether he belonged. He wasn't about to let it ruin their trip. But Amanda wasn't done. Though she moved through the cabin, assisting other passengers, her eyes occasionally drifted back to 3A and 3B. Something about the Whitaker family gnawed at her. They didn't fit the usual first-class mold. No designer luggage, no business suits, no air of effortless entitlement. Marcus wore a hoodie, Danielle had on a simple, elegant dress, and their kids were, well, kids, loud and excited. They seemed too comfortable, like they belonged. Amanda's gut told her otherwise. "Hey," she whispered to another flight attendant, Rachel, as they prepped the drink cart. "Did you double-check that family's boarding passes?" Rachel glanced up. "The ones in 3A and 3B? Yeah, they're good." "What?" Amanda hesitated. "No reason. Just checking." But she wasn't done. Moments later, as passengers settled in, Amanda approached the Whitakers again, this time with a firmer expression. "Sir, ma'am, I'm going to need to see your tickets again," she said. Marcus looked up, his face unreadable. "What?" "Routine verification," Amanda replied, her tone clipped. Danielle frowned. "But we already scanned them at the gate." Amanda's smile didn't budge. "Sometimes mistakes happen." Marcus sighed through his nose, pulled out his phone, and displayed the digital boarding passes. 3A and 3B. Like I said, Amanda barely glanced before nodding stiffly. "Thank you." Still, her suspicions lingered. She needed an excuse to validate them. Right on cue, Mia pressed the seat button too hard, causing the tray table to spring out with a loud clunk. An older man across the aisle glanced over briefly before returning to his magazine. Amanda seized the moment. She strode over. "Sir, ma'am," she began, her tone carrying the weight of authority. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep your children under control. This is a first-class cabin, and we expect a certain level of decorum." Marcus set his phone down slowly. "Excuse me. It's a safety issue," Amanda insisted. "If she keeps playing with the seat functions, she could damage the equipment." Danielle's jaw dropped. "She's just excited. She's not breaking anything." "Regardless," Amanda pressed, "we need to ensure a comfortable environment for all passengers." Mia, sensing the tension, shrank in her seat, clutching her stuffed bunny tighter. "Look," Marcus said calmly, "we paid for these seats. We're sitting here quietly. So, what exactly is the problem?" Amanda's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your assigned seats in economy." The cabin fell silent. Caleb finally looked up from his game. Danielle's voice was barely a whisper. "You're kidding, right?" Amanda didn't flinch. "This section is for first-class passengers." Marcus pulled up their tickets again. 3A and 3B. "You've seen them twice now. What's really going on here?" Amanda didn't answer. Instead, she gestured for security. Two uniformed officers boarded the plane. One was tall and broad-shouldered, the other younger and visibly uncomfortable. "They're refusing to comply," Amanda stated flatly. "They're in the wrong seats." The younger officer's brows knitted together. The Whitakers didn't look disruptive. They looked humiliated. Marcus sighed deeply. "You're kicking us off the plane? In front of our kids?" "Sir, please remain calm," the officer replied. Danielle laughed bitterly. "You've been harassing us since we boarded." But it didn't matter. The officers escorted the Whitakers off the plane. Passengers avoided eye contact. Some filmed on their phones, while others sat in awkward silence. Mia cried quietly, clutching her bunny as they exited the plane. Back in the terminal, Marcus tried to keep his composure as Danielle seethed. "This is ridiculous, Marcus. You need to." Before she could finish, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Gate agents whispered. A sharply dressed man in a navy suit rushed over, his airport badge swinging from his neck. "Mr. Whitaker," he asked nervously. Marcus didn't respond immediately. "I'm Peter Collins, Director of Customer Relations. I just heard what happened. Could we talk privately?" Danielle crossed her arms. "Do you even know who my husband is?" Peter swallowed hard. He absolutely did. Marcus Whitaker wasn't just a first-class passenger. He was the CEO of Whitaker Enterprises, one of the airline's largest investors. Months earlier, Pacific Horizon had boasted about their partnership with Marcus's tech firm, highlighting it as a step toward promoting diversity in corporate leadership. And now, one of their own had kicked him off a plane. Peter's face paled further. "Mr. Whitaker, Stop," Marcus interrupted. "Before you give me some rehearsed apology, I want accountability. Bring her here." Peter blinked. "Sir, you heard me." Moments later, Amanda approached, clearly confused until she saw Marcus. Her face drained of color. Peter cleared his throat. "This is Mr. Marcus Whitaker." Amanda's mouth opened, then closed again. "I'm going to give you a chance to explain," Marcus said calmly. Amanda stammered, I was just doing my job. Even after we showed you our tickets?" "Twice," Danielle snapped. Amanda's throat tightened. I made a mistake." "No, Marcus corrective. You made assumptions. And now you're going to face the consequences." Amanda's composure crumbled as Peter spoke next. "You're relieved of duty, effective immediately." Amanda's hands shook as she removed her badge, placing it in Peter's hand. It was over. Marcus turned to Peter. "Make sure this never happens again." Peter nodded furiously. "Understood, sir." As the Whitakers rejoined their children in a private lounge, Marcus reflected on the moment. Despite all he had achieved, there were still people like Amanda who couldn't see past the surface. But this time, they had been held accountable. And that was a victory worth more than any first-class seat.